The Seattle Kraken have selected Chase ReId with the 7th overall pick in the 2026 NHL Draft, and I'm going to tell you why this is a franchise-changing move and why the rest of the league made a mistake.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up? What's going on? I'm Zane Begg, and I'm a Seattle-based journalist covering the Seattle Supersonics, Toronto, and Kraken, and welcome to Locked On Kraken. We are going to talk about the Kraken taking Chase ReId first overall. This is just my initial reaction. We're going to get a lot more into this in future episodes with the stats and the details and the scouting, and but I just originally just wanted to give my initial impressions as I'm reacting to this. This was far exceeded my wildest expectations. Chase ReId was the best defensive prospect in this draft, bar none. Consensus. I mean, everybody has him as the number one defenseman. By my scouting of the top defensemen, that was the conclusion I reached as well. I did a show about it a few weeks ago. And honestly, I did it just for the sake of completeness. I did not think that there was any reasonable way the Kraken would end up drafting Chase ReId, but it was a good way to just introduce people to the draft class. And here we are. So real quick, who is he? He's a large defenseman. He's 6'2", 194 pounds. So he's not a small child. His career path is a little interesting. He was in the USHL and for playing for the Waterloo Blackhawks, had no points, and then they kicked him out. It is also worth noting he changed positions from forward to defenseman, similar to Cale Makar. And I think that there are some parallels here. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Cale Makar, although I'm not saying he's not going to be the next Cale Makar. I mean, we don't know. His draft profile is very high. We can talk about that in a little bit here. But he then went to the Bismarck Bobcats, and I think he went, if I recall correctly, he had no points in his first 8 games. And then in the remaining 10 games, he had 12 points. And then went to the OHL for the Sioux Greyhounds, where he was a better than point per game player as a defenseman. And then at the World Juniors, he was probably the best player on the ice. And so here we are. He is committed to play for the Michigan State University Spartans next season. It's a good hockey program, so he'll be there in college next year. So we're not going to see him on the Kraken next year. But the reason why this is gobsmacking is because we talked on the show about how all of the draft value is at the very, very, very top. And this is the thing that we have talked about, how it's so important to win the lottery, because all of the draft value, not all, but the massive, massive spike in draft value from the top 2 picks, especially, then, there's a big gap, 3 and 4, and then 5 on, and then it really, really falls off. And there are all sorts of different charts. Dom Lucian he just came up with his own draft chart. I have my own. It looks almost exactly identical to this one here that I'm here with, Evolving Hockey. It is really hard to find a franchise-changing player unless it's in a top 2, top 3 pick range. Yeah, sometimes the draft is like 3 deep and you can get like a top 3 pick and then you still get that franchise transformative, talent. Well, because for a lot of different reasons, the valuation of defensemen seems to be all over the place, and so the teams clearly they felt differently about Chase ReId than what everyone else saw, and I think they may have overthought things. But I asked Dylan from Emerald City Hockey, who was there because we're all the media were there, and I said, "Why do you think they passed on him?" And he thinks that the teams are drafting for fit more than best player available, which is not a good way to draft. And then if that's the case, then the Kraken just get the best defenseman in the entire freaking draft at 7 when they don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to trade up. They don't have to. It just naturally falls to them. I mean, Corey Pronman, his evaluation of the entire draft had Chase ReId the number 1 overall pick. Now, Pronman was, he goes off goes off the rails a little bit. He also famously had Shane Wright 4th when no one else did, and that one turned out to be quite a bit more accurate than everyone else thought he was a moron. There was talk Toronto might take Chase ReId 1st overall because it's hard to get a number 1 defenseman versus McKenna, who's a winger, and it's easier to get a winger. It was talk that the Sharks would still take Chase ReId at 2, which was the plan and what everyone had the Sharks doing until the series of trades that happened with the Kachuk and the Sharks and the 9 and the this and the day like all the trades happened, and it's like, oh, the Sharks have the 2 and the 9 pick now, so they can take a defenseman prospect at 9 and take Ivar Stenberg at 2. But before that, it was like, oh, Chase ReId is going in the top 2. And then it's just all of this evaluation of this has Chase ReId as the number 1 defenseman and the profile of a defenseman who can be a transformative franchise defenseman. And we'll look later next week when we can really dig into this about the projections and the scouting. But this is not supposed to happen. The Kraken aren't supposed to, you're not supposed to get that kind of talent at the 7th overall pick. It just doesn't happen. Now, you might say, okay, well, it might be like the Shane Wright thing where Shane Wright turns out, he was presumptive number 1 overall and he fell to 4. And it turns out 4 is, roughly where he should have been. 2 things. One, I think the Shane Wright situation was a lot different because partially like his league season got canceled because of COVID. Right. And so you miss a development year, you miss an evaluation year. And then second, I think that the Kraken did a poor job of his development. And we know that at least from the audit, that was the one thing that they called out was that their ability to develop their players once they've been drafted. It's also something Jason Botterill brought up tonight after at this press conference about player development. I'm hoping that they learned from the Shane Wright experience and they're going to be more careful with the development of Chase ReId. And also Ron Francis isn't there and Jason Botterill is. And Jason Botterill so far hasn't done anything stupid this offseason. So I'm going to continue to give him the benefit of the doubt. The Bobby McMahon move was good. The Mackie Samoskevich move was good. Chase ReId at 7, we won't give him like a ton of credit for figuring out like the most obvious draft pick, but all the other stuff too. I mean, putting together the Jason Robertson deal, and just being aggressive and trying to get things done. So far the report card for Jason Botterill is higher than I would have given Ron Francis, because Ron Francis didn't seem like he was willing to make any big swings for a Jason Robertson or the like. So coming up next, let's talk more about how this changes the whole outlook for the Kraken. You should be really, really happy. At least I'm really, really happy. And I want to communicate to you why I'm happy so you can be happy, because by golly, this was a really, really good day for Kraken fans. If you've got a sweet tooth like I do, you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar, and that's why Fruity Rainbow 5-Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. Fruity Rainbow 5-Hour Energy Shots treat your taste buds to an explosion of fruity flavor with a tasty caffeine kick. It's a quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. Earlier today, I had to go to KCI for the draft party, and I did not know how long I was going to be there. And so what I did is I just grabbed myself a little 5-hour energy rainbow shot. And then, I got there and I'm like, man, I'm kind of dragging because I was up super early, and just a little boop. And now I got a little 5 hours of energy. It was great. I wonder where the name comes from. Also, where do onion rings get their name? You ever wonder about that? Well, this is a zero sugar treat that's sweet tooth approved, and I like. It's just nice. It's convenient. It's great, and it tastes delicious, and no sugar. So, what's not to love? Get candy flavor chaos with fruity rainbow 5-hour energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. So, everydayers know that I have not been terribly optimistic about the future of this franchise. And we've done a lot of look at the numbers, and what the Kraken generally need to add to in terms of different ways of valuing goals above replacement or expected goals added, or expected goal differential added, various projection systems, but all of them have the Kraken coming up short. And the way you get that is you have better and more talented players. However, the means for getting more talented players are extremely limited, because unrestricted free agency only happens when a player is past their prime and has a terrible track record. That is just not a viable way to improve your hockey roster. It never has been. And if you think about the Kraken free agents they've signed, none of them have really worked. Philip Grubauer, as much as I love him, he's had one good season out of 5. Under Burakovsky was, that did not work at all. I guess Brandon Montour so far has been good. We'll see how his age is. Chandler Stevenson, obviously, just a horrific disaster of disasters. So free agency is out. As we have found out, even things like restricted free agency is not an option, as Jason Robertson was like, you know what? I'm not going to take this $120 million to play in Seattle. Trades are also not a terribly viable option, because everyone has a no trade clause. The NHL has about 250 of them. The other day I looked at all the ones that have ever been there in the NBA, and it's like 12 names in the history of the league, and they're mostly like first ballot Hall of Famers and Bradley Beal. But the Kraken, they've got, everyone seems to have a no trade clause. Let's see. We get Chandler Stevenson, Bobby McMahon, Jordan Eberle, Jared McCann, Freddie Gaudreau, Vince Dunn, Brandon Montour, Adam Larson, Ryan Lindgren have a no trade clause or a modified no trade clause where it's like, 10 teams. Is that more than the entire history of the NBA? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, it's one short. So that's then becomes a problem because if no one wants to come to Seattle for whatever reason, well, they got a no trade clause. Everyone's got a no trade clause. If you're anyone decent, no trade clause. In fact, actually, you once you've watched your 50th Kraken game, you actually get a no trade clause. It's a 10 team, to start, but as the season goes on, it becomes a full no trade clause. So that's something that you should be aware of and contact your rep to get the details on that. But so that's my service to you, like a PSA. So you can't go free agency. Restricted free agency isn't really a thing, apparently. And it's just hard to get young talent even through restricted free agency because the other team can usually match. The Stars in this case are pretty capped out, and the Kraken offered so much money that the Stars would rather do a trade, and then Jason Robertson's is like, yeah, well, I'm not signing in Seattle anyway. And then trading, you can't trade for them because everyone's got a no trade clause and no one wants to come to Seattle. So that only leaves the draft. But if all the value at the draft is at the very, very, very top, then there's just a disproportionate effect of the quality of your roster build based on the results of the draft lottery. And that is why it is so frustrating to try to dig out of a rebuild or build a bad roster, because you just don't have that many mechanisms to improve a roster. And then coaching can only do so much. It's not football. For football, you can hire a completely different coach, and you can give Michael McDonald Mike McDonald and Pete Carroll the same roster, and Mike McDonald will use them like a coach would use them in the year 2026 and not like it's 2013, as an example. And then you have a huge difference. That doesn't exist in hockey. It's about the players. And then the contracts are guaranteed. So you have to wait for them to expire. And well, I mean, that's going to take a while. So, Jason Botterill, if he's taken over to whatever extent he has taken over from Ron Francis. It is my belief, based on public and private information, that he was still very much influential last season, and that Jason Botterill, this is finally the first time that he's been free from the specter of Ron. But this offseason, the only remaining free agents are Jaden Schwartz, Ellie Tolvanen, and Jamie Alexiak. Everyone else is on contract. Mackie Samoskevich is a restricted free agent who they just traded for, and he will sign a contract, presumably. But it's going to take a while to overturn this roster. And that, and then in 2 years, it's really just Vince Dunn and Jared McCann. And then the year after that, that's when it's like, okay, Jordan Eberle and Kaapo Kakko and Freddie Gaudreau, and I guess Glenn Myers is included in that. And then the goalies, Philip Grubauer, this is his last season, this upcoming season. Then Joey is signed through 29. But the point being is that this is a multi-year process, and it's a very patient process, which can be frustrating, especially if you're used to the NFL. The NFL can turn teams around in nothing. think the Broncos went from whatever pick they had that got traded to Seattle, and it was like after the Russell Wilson trade, and like they lost all the draft capital or whatever, and then like 3 years later, they're in the AFC Championship game, right? And it's like that is not happening in hockey ever. So you get a high draft pick. Well, the Kraken are drafting at 7. So, well, I guess we wait till next year. Unless a top 2 talent or a top 1 talent, top 1, if Corey Pronman, happens to be there at 7 because someone made a misevaluation. And there's a lot of valuations out there that we'll look at later that project him to be an elite defenseman and a star defenseman and a franchise defenseman and exactly the kind of star that they can build around that adds boatloads of long-term win equity. Because now, let's say they hold on to Shane Wright. I hope they do. You got Shane Wright, Matty Beniers, Berkeley Catton, Jake O'Brien, Chase ReId, and then Yanni Newman, Jagger Firkus, Ryan Winterton, Oscar Mogard. But especially that first group, man, you got a stew going. I mean, that's a nice little core there. I did talk to Jason Botterill after the draft, and he indicated that I think they're going to hold on to Vince Dunn and Jared McCann. I don't think they're going to get traded this offseason. We'll see how things go towards the trade deadline next year. I'm sure that'll be a function of how well the team is doing overall. But and then the other thing I kind of sneaky asked, I was like, hey, you plan to do any buyouts? And he's like, no buyouts. So that was my way of finding out if he is planning on doing a Chandler Stevenson buyout, which is not the case. I think that the team should continue to be poor, to be bad, give poor results over this next season. And in this sense, drafting Chase ReId does not make them better or worse because he'll be playing at Michigan State next year. And then I want the Kraken, who already seem like a bad team on paper, to get another really nice high draft pick. And now you've got like a Sharks-esque situation where you've rebuilt your team with a bunch of blue chip pieces. And then it starts becoming the kind of franchise that players will want to come to. It's a multi-year process. It requires patience. But the Kraken now have a pathway to being a consistent playoff team that did not exist before this day started. This was never supposed to happen. I don't know. I don't know why. I really don't. I'm just kind of baffled, and I've been reading the opinions of others and opinions of smart people and talking to smart people. And the best can come up with are two things. One is that they felt that the evaluations of defensemen were all over the place, and they just went with one that they're like, well, they're so close, so we'll just go with the one who best fits our needs, our system, our whatever. And then the second is that Chase ReId, he didn't have a bunch of years where he was dominant and then he just got better and better. He was like really bad, and then he figured out how to be less bad, and then he went from less bad to being like, holy cow, this guy's amazing. Now, I think that's a big part of the fact that he switched from forward to defense when he was, I think it was like when he was 13. It was like 13 or 11. It was pretty late in his developmental curve there. And but I just see the skating and the hockey sense and the hockey IQ and his shots amazing, and he's good defensively, and he just doesn't have any real weaknesses, really. I mean, if his weaknesses are real minor. I mean, sometimes he like overplays the puck and tries to get too fancy, and yeah, he could afford to get a little bigger. I guess that's true for every 18-year-old, but probably passes the puck less than he should. He's a good passer, and he doesn't use that skill enough. I mean, I'm scraping here. This is just a game changer, and after what Seattle hockey fans have been through, like not only this but with the torrent, this has been just like a rainbow after a very, very long series of dark clouds. I'm so excited. I'm so optimistic, and I haven't felt optimistic in a while, but this is the kind of move that can change a franchise. And this was an extraordinarily weird week in the NHL, an extraordinarily weird draft in the NHL. And when there is this kind of chaos and uncertainty, smart organizations can take advantage. I don't know how smart or not smart Jason Botterill is. Doesn't seem dumb, for sure. But I know other people in that front office, and they're brilliant. And they have a track record of having some of the best amateur scouting in the NHL. So when there's uncertainty and chaos, I trust the Kraken staff over just about anybody. Maybe a few exceptions: Dallas, Colorado, Florida, New Jersey, probably put it like on par with Seattle, but those are good teams, and those teams are not drafting that high. And I think it just feels like Seattle got away with it. I think just the Kraken got away with it, and the whole trajectory changes now, because now you have a real star to build around, like a real star. You have another season where you get a nice high draft pick, and all of a sudden you start forming the core of not just a consistent playoff team, but a Stanley Cup contending team. My demeanor is muted, partially because it's quite late, and partially because it's just disbelief. Like, all of the scenarios, like it hasn't hit it. Yeah, it hasn't hit me really. Like all of the scenarios were didn't have this. I was like earlier I was trying to come up with like some convoluted way of like, okay, well, whoa, what if the top four went down this way, and then Chase ReId was there at 5, then could Seattle trade up to 5, and I was trying to come up with like all these crazy ways that Seattle could get Chase ReId, and it's like, okay, well, that's not happening. It's just like, okay, that's just, and then somehow it did, and it just, wow. I'm flummoxed. I'm blown away, and I'm so excited. I have a little hop in my step that I didn't have before. And especially then, Berkeley Catton takes a step forward and he starts finishing. Ooh. Maybe this team is fun. Maybe this team is actually like fun to watch. Wouldn't that be something? It's the summer. The sun is out. The World Cup is in town. The Kraken are getting top 3 talent at 7, top 2 talent, top 1 talent. Who knows? Maybe they got the best player in the draft. It's like not insane to say that. And they didn't have to move up. They didn't have to trade any picks or do anything dumb. And now they're in a better spot than they would have been if they had traded for Jason Robertson or Jordan Kyrou or Robert Thomas or Alex Tuck or all these big moves that the Kraken were linked to and then never did. And so sometimes the best move is better is not to make them any move at all. And a desperation move is definitely worse than making no move at all. And none of that has happened. Everything has been so far smart, responsible hockey decisions. And now an absolute gift in the draft. And a franchise-changing gift in the draft. So should be excited. I'm excited. I'm over the moon. My God. I just, everyone did this. Everyone had this problem. I like Emerald City Hockey. I don't think they had a graphic ready. Beneath the Waves didn't have a graphic ready. And I did a show on him, but I didn't remember really that much. I went back and I did my research for a lot of the prospects who would have been there plausibly at 7. Chase ReId was not one of them because Chase ReId was going way before Seattle was taking it 7. Chase ReId could have gone second and could have gone first. First is was plausible. And then he falls to the Kraken, ECH didn't. I don't think they had a Chase ReId graphic ready because that's insane, The Kraken are drafting 7th, and I think everybody was caught off guard. I certainly was. It's fun. It's fun. 32 Bar and Grill was it was a little explosion. I don't know how many of the people. I mean, certainly some of them are draft weirdos like me, but and how many were just there because it's a Kraken party thing, and it was $7 for 7 wings, and it was cool. It was a cool atmosphere, and that place is just kind of a good place to hang out, and the food is delicious, and so I get it, but it's a good day to be a Kraken fan, and what a whiplash from the Jason Robertson stuff to this. It's just I can't believe it. I can't believe it. There's just finally something to look forward to again. And I mean, look at these micro stats. It's just he's 80th or 90th percentile in basically everything. He's so good at so many things, and he's so not good at anything. That was a confusing double negative. I mean, there's nothing he's bad at. He's just good at things, and then he's slightly less good at some things, and then that's your defenseman. Well, why is he there at 7? All right. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Other than enjoy being a Kraken fan again. It's a little frustrating that we won't see him and see his impact for probably about 2 years, maybe a year at Michigan State, maybe a year at Coachella Valley, or maybe 2 years at Michigan State, or maybe he does 1 year at Michigan State and then we see him 2 years. But don't expect him to see him on this upcoming season. It's not how that works. And defensemen do take longer to develop. So I would expect a 2-season gap before he does finally show up. But he's there. He's in the system, and he is germinating. And the long-term outlook of the franchise, because of a quality prospect, a prospect that is that good, changes the complexion of everything that happens going forward. It raises the ceiling, and it gives the Kraken a chance to find the star player that they desperately have been searching for without paying for someone who is aging or overpaying for someone who turns out doesn't even want to be here anyway. This was an incredible day. Just a really, really incredible day. And I can't wait to see what happens. So, whew. And we got a lot more draft to go. We got a bunch more rounds, although it's very unlikely to be as exciting or as impactful as this one. Certainly, no one will know in the moment. Maybe there's some crazy third round future Cinderella story that the Kraken draft, but we don't know who that person will be. But that does it for today's episode. We will be back, and make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Kraken so you get all the latest episodes. You can find us at David Jones LR on all social media platforms or on davidjoneslockerroom.com, where we do print coverage of the Torrent and Seattle Kraken. And if you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked On Kraken Act free, plus members only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonpodcast.com/everyday to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure this is one of your 2 daily listens. For Davy Jones Locker Room, it is a bright, sunny day in Seattle, and it is a bright, sunny day on the futures of the Seattle Kraken. Rejoice. It's good times are ahead. And yeah, that's it. All right. I'll see you next time.